I get so many questions from young people and they tell me, oh, I want to get into exports like you. How can I do exports of flowers? And I ask them, why do you want to venture into exports? And they tell me that exports has big money and quick money. Let me just say it today, that's not true. It's a fiction we've been made to believe. The most important thing is, why do you want to venture into exports? Someone is looking at money. You are going to get into exports and be very disappointed. This is what I'd tell people who want to venture into exports. You have to know that your business is vulnerable to global shocks, because this is a global business. So global shocks are inevitable. We had the Ukraine-Russia war. Exporters were affected. We had the Gaza conflict. Exporters were affected. Talk about US-Iran war. I don't export flowers to Iran, but it goes through Middle East. So when the airspace closures happened, that means I cannot export. So even the ones that were going to Europe but have to go through Middle East, they also did not go. Exports involves so many documentations, import-export certifications. You need to get them right from the onset. Someone is going to realize, I don't have an export license, and you've already brought the flowers to the airport. They're going to go bad, because trust me, they won't leave the country without all the certifications. So you need to be very clear on all the certification that you need. Don't assume simply because I have a horticultural export license for flowers, I cannot export avocado.
All right, guys, before we get into the conversation, allow me to give a quick shout out to our friends at FarmSentry.ai. Now, been following this podcast for a while now, you know that I'm a huge believer in treating your farm as a business. And this is one of the biggest problems I see a lot of farmers have, is that they don't take their farm seriously. You see them running the farms using WhatsApp groups, maybe phone calls, and just relying on the memory to keep their basic data. And this is why they almost always run their farms to the ground. Enter FarmSentry.ai. FarmSentry is a farm management platform that helps you really keep your records, manage your crops and livestock, plan your farm activities, track your expenses, and most importantly, it shows you if your farm is making money or not, all through your phone. Now, my favorite feature by far is the diagnostics tool. Let's say you're working on the farm and you see a leaf that doesn't look quite right, like this one, for example. All you have to do is just open your FarmSentry app, tap the diagnostics, take a photo, and ask the question, what's wrong with my leaf? And within seconds, FarmSentry analyzes the image, identifies the likely problem, and recommends what action you should take. And just like that, you are no longer guessing. And that is the power of AI right in your pocket. Right now, FarmSentry is offering a 30-day free trial. All you have to do is head over to FarmSentry.ai or simply search FarmSentry, that is Farm, S-E-N-T-R-Y, on Google Play Store or App Store. And you get to experience all these amazing features within FarmSentry. And when you like it, which I'm sure you would, be sure to use my coupon code ORGANICGUY for a 20% off. That is Organic Guy for a 20% off. All right, let's get into the conversation. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Organic Guy podcast. This is your home of organic conversations. I'm your host, the Organic Guy, and right around here, we do have conversations on how we can make our food systems really get to, work for us rather than against us. Today, I want us to have a conversation on one of the most requested topics, and that is in the business of agricultural export. Last year, I think we did over 350 billion Kenya shillings worth of exports. So that means there's a lot more money to be made in the export businesses. So what does it take to actually export your products? And how do you get all the licenses? How much can it cost you? And to have this conversation and really help us understand what it takes in the export business, I'm super delighted to be joined by Ellen Muthama, who's the director of Nouvelle Blooms Ltd, specializing in export business. So for me, it's a pleasure. At least she will help us get a closure on what the export business actually means. Ellen, thank you very much for making time.
You're most welcome, Brian. I'm also honored to be here today.
Yeah, I think when it comes to agriculture and especially in the export business, this is one area that I've gotten a lot of questions about. And it's fair to say there's not a lot of people who talk about this topic. So I'm super excited for you to sort of enlighten us on that point of view. But before we dive into the conversation, I want you to set for us a little bit of context about yourself. When you are growing up, I'm talking about 5, 6, 7 years old. How is Ellen like? Are you more of extrovert and introvert? If I was to go around and ask your friends, who would they say you were in that particular age?
So Ellen is a young, ambitious girl, and I'm very noisy at times, so I'd say I'm an extrovert. I grew up being exposed to leadership. My dad is a pastor, so you can imagine he's always out there talking and preaching to people, so I think I took after him. So everywhere I go, even from primary school, high school, I used to get so many leadership positions. At some point in Form 4, I was the school captain, so I really love being out there. I used to engage in debates. In fact, at some point, I won Best Female Debater in Nyeri region back in 2017. So anything to do with talking and enticing people, encouraging people to get into things and all that, that's just me. So even till date, I'm just that person who loves trailblazing. So yeah, I'd say Ellen is an extrovert, and I really love being out there and talking. Maybe that's why I got into exports, even despite being at a very young age and still being very vocal about it. So I just love being vocal about things.
When you were growing up, was there agriculture any part of your life? Like, were you involved in agriculture in any way, shape, or form?
Yes, because my mom has been rearing chicken for the longest. So what I've been exposed to is the subsistence form of agriculture. But now growing up, you start seeing people who are actually embracing things like precision agriculture. So that gave me the interest to want to venture into it, because I realized in agriculture there is agribusiness. So there is how you can expand it from just the subsistence form into becoming something that's large scale and also for the benefit of many. So yes, I've grown up. In fact, at some point I reared some chicken, but they died because I didn't have like enough money to, feed them properly, and also the vaccinations, etc. So I had the starting capital, but I didn't have the capital to keep me moving. So at some point they all died, but I was happy I tried. So yeah, agriculture, I've been exposed to the subsistence aspect of agriculture, but now when I'm in exports, I'm actually seeing smart farming, pivot irrigation systems. I've visited projects like in Galana Kulalu by Nyumba Foundation, and you see people doing pivot irrigation systems, and that just gives me some sort of feeling, and I'm like, wow, agriculture is more than just the traditional form that we saw. And I think the time has come when we need to now shift from the traditional aspect of agriculture into precision farming. I've seen people doing aquaponics, hydroponics. I know people are going to research some of these things, but there is smart farming, and many people are embracing it. But I think we are not just speaking enough about it, because, the young generation doesn't love the traditional aspect of it. They want the innovative part of it, which is something I'm really advocating for now that I'm into exports of agricultural products.
Yeah, and especially in an age where, a lot of young people want to do cool stuff. Sorry about your chicken endeavors. It happens in agriculture, I guess. Every single person who has had the pleasure of delving into starting an agricultural venture has that side of the story as well. So welcome to the club. You've mentioned you've seen subsistence farming. You've exposed yourself to different agricultural practices, and actually that's a very important point, because you cannot envision what you haven't been exposed to yet. So once you get exposed to precision, your mind goes like, oh, okay, I think there's more to this. What can I do more? So for you, was there a moment you were like, okay, it's time for me to venture into the export business? What was that switch you made?
So for us, my husband works within the agricultural space. So he's the one who actually came up with the idea and told me, we can do exports. In fact, we began with exporting flowers before we now scaled up to tea and coffee. So he told me he sat with someone in a certain plane. They were going to Mombasa, and the lady does flower exports, and she spoke to him about it, and that kind of thrilled him. Then he came, since he's in agriculture, he was like, how about we try and merge? My background is in business and IT. So I haven't done agriculture at any point, but I got that interest because I was like, this is something new and it's something that will stretch me out of my comfort zone. So when I came in desiring to apply my business and IT skills into agriculture. So we decided to begin with exports. And agriculture is a value chain. Many people, when they talk about agriculture, they only think about the farmer. But there is logistics, there is packaging, there is processing, there is branding. It's so many things. So we decided to start with one aspect of the value chain, which is the exports part of it. We might end up becoming farmers. Of course, we also desire, because now we are starting to see that there are other new ways, there are other innovative ways of doing agriculture. So that's how I think we now ended up into doing exports. Of course, not having the agricultural background, I had to associate myself with people who are already in the sector so that I also get to learn from them. So I did not come in thinking that I'm all knowing. So I was now ready to learn. I was ready to hear from others. So I sat with exporters actually, even with a notebook, and you're taking down notes. When we did our first export, I didn't do it entirely alone. We had a company that has been exporting that helped us. So in the process, I learned. So that's how I found myself in exports. And I'm enjoying it because now I'm happy that I can boldly stand and say that I'm into exports. I'm doing some of them alone, like as a company. I'm just glad. So it's been a work in progress, but I'm happy with how far we've come.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the beauty of entrepreneurship. You start something from zero and you get to see it grow, and then of course you're going to tremble and fall. But I think that's part of the journey itself. And I think when you look back, sometimes you say, oh, okay, this is where I've come from, and I'm really, really proud of myself. So that always the thrill of entrepreneurship. So I'm thinking from an export business point of view. So let's say there's a farmer somewhere in Nyandarua and they want to get into the export business. Where should they start?
So let me begin with flowers. The starting capital of flowers is very expensive. It's capital intensive. So what I normally advise someone is, if you cannot do it by yourself, you can work with an already existing company or already existing exporters, because exports is dense. Even when you look at tea and coffee, you must do it in large scale so that you can find profitability in the business. So what I normally advise most people, especially young people, because they're the ones I interact with, and I am a young person, is you first research intensively about it. Before you get into farming of the particular product, you must start by understanding what does that journey entail. There are people who have a product, but it's not what the market wants. So you must identify a product or a produce, now that you're talking about agriculture, that has market demand. So if it is flowers, you must be in the place that has the right climate. You must be having at least the capital to be able to begin. Then once you do that, you now start acquiring certifications that help you to export. The export business is document intensive. It is complex. A lot of documentation has to be done. So you have to comply with every standard. No product can leave Jomo Kenyatta International Airport without the right certifications. So certifications is very important. So when you get into exports, okay, first and foremost, you start a company, you register a company, do the KRA certificate, get the tax compliance. Then those documents, they're now going to help you to get now the export license. If it's flowers, you apply under the horticultural Directorate, HCDA. So once you get to that point, now things have been so streamlined, you can do it online. In fact, AFA, Agriculture and Food Authority, have an integrated management information system. So you don't need to go visit their offices in order to apply for a license. You can just do it online. So first register the business. Open a bank account, of course. When you're opening a bank account, most of the currencies you're going to deal with is USD, the United States dollar, euros, pounds, so it depends. So you also need accounts for that. We have a Kenya shillings account, but we don't even use it. It's just for our own local use, but with clients, we mostly do it USD, euros, and ETC. So once you want to know what particular certificates do you need, when you visit platforms like KenTrade, Kenya Trade or Info Trade, it gives you a breakdown that if you're a farmer, this is the license you get. If you're an exporter, this is what you get. If you're going to be buying things like tea and coffee from the auction, this is the license you're going to get. So there are quite a number of certifications. It's very important to get it right from the onset.
Wow. Okay. So first you need to register business. Of course, you are assuming you already know exactly what you want to deal with. So let's say it's flowers, it's coffee, it's tea, etc. It's herbs. So you have that knowledge already. Register as a company, open a bank account, and go to respective websites to see what kind of certification that you need to export your business. So for you, when you were starting, were you very clear to which country you want to export to, or this is something you get to develop as you go by?
It's something we learned in the process. Because you see, it's important that if you know this is the particular product I want to deal with, this is the target market. So when we began, we were interested in exporting flowers, but to the Middle East. Now, as time went by, we are now exporting to United States. We are doing it to Europe, Caucasian countries like, Georgia. So we go expanding in the process. Exports is something that's also very volatile. You might be doing it to the Middle East, then US-Iran war hits, and the airspace is restricted. You cannot do it there. The market demand shifts. You have to now go to, this is now the next particular place I want to deal with. Some export companies have majored on one particular country or one particular region because that's where most of their clientele is. You can find that there are particular flower farms. Actually, even here in Kenya, they do 90% of flower exports to the Middle East. Others do even 100% of their exports to the European Union. So it depends. So for us, we diversified. So we are doing to Middle East. We are also doing, even here in Africa, South Africa, DRC. We've done actually some of them to Uganda, others to Tanzania. So we go scaling up. So if you're an exporter, you identify your niche and where your strength is. Maybe yours is in doing it in diversified countries all around the world. Maybe for someone else is just dealing with a particular country or a particular region, but it's unsafe because you see now once things like global crisis hit, it affects. So I believe in diversification, which is actually what we do. So if you're not doing them to Middle East today, maybe tomorrow you're doing it to Europe, you are doing even to different parts of the world. So that's how we made our company, that's how we structured it for us.
Yeah, as you mentioned, it helps a lot knowing if something happens, then you have other options that you can turn to. So I'm wondering, in terms of cash flow, let's say you're sending your products to Iran or maybe to India or to the Netherlands for flowers. How long does it take for you to get your money? Because I'm imagining it's going to take a while for them to confirm they have the flowers and then to start giving you your money back.
In flowers, 80% of flower farms or flower exporters, the payment is advance. In fact, in Nouvelle Blooms, we strictly do advance payments. For products like tea and coffee, which at times go by sea, you just tell someone to pay in batches or in installments. There's another mode of payment that's called letter of credit or telegraphic transfer. You might have heard of them. So this is where the client's bank contacts your bank and they send money to your bank. So it's your bank that's giving you the money in phases. Because it's quite an amount of money. If I'm to equate, you can also do exports of coffee of up to 20 million, 30 million. No one is going to give you that money blindly. So their bank works with your bank and they release the money in phases. Once maybe the product has left the farm or the auction and has gotten to Mombasa at the seaport, a certain amount of money is released. Once it gets there, a certain amount of money is released. So you just structure it and know and agree with your client, how do you want the payment to be done? But particularly flowers, it's strictly advance. Why is it advance payments? Because you want them on Saturday. We've already paid the farm because you also pay the farm up front. So you pay for the flowers. They come on Friday to the airport, Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. Maybe even the same Friday, they leave the country. By Saturday morning, you already have your flowers. So you see, it's taking like 3 days. Now that you cannot now start negotiating, now pay 10%, pay 20, that one you do advance.
Yeah, I think that makes sense because in my mind, I was only imagining that you're doing it through the sea, and that one usually can take 4 or 5 weeks for you to get your money. So, and then you need to pay people, you need to pay your suppliers, and that might complicate things. But if you're being paid in advance, then I think that takes care a lot of businesses as well.
But exports is also very risky. You cannot also go on without having a down payment in place. Because imagine I'm going to source the coffee. And then you start giving me stories after I've sourced that, we've decided we're not going to pick the coffee from you. You need to shield yourself from certain things. But in the process, you might get very reliable clients who even pay you in advance because they know they are getting the shipments on a regular basis. For example, having a client who wants 2 containers of coffee each and every month, they can even pay you the whole amount, up to 10, 20, 30 million for 3 months. So your work is just rolling out the containers when the time comes. So when the payment or the cash flow is smooth, then even the export part of it becomes smooth. But cash constraints can also be very detrimental when it comes to exports, because you see, also a lot of money is involved. You also don't want to risk it.
If you are new into the business, so for example, you've been in it for a few years now, how long do you think does it take for you to establish like the right relationships? So let's say you want to export to the Netherlands. So I'm assuming there are already people who have different relationships. The company who are already exporting those products that you want to export. How long do you think will it take for someone to establish those relationships for them to keep their company going?
Establishing relationships is relative, and everyone does it differently. I believe how you establish relationships is a skill. Are you reliable? Are you consistent when it comes to the volumes, when it comes to how you handle the financial aspect of it? How reliable are you? The quality of flowers you send on the first shipment should be same, if not better, in the second shipment. So you have to ensure that you are very consistent in quality. If you assure someone you're going to give them volumes, let it not be word of mouth. Do it in action. Actually give them, this is the volume you asked for, this is what I can give. So also being in this business, to establish relationships also means being very honest with yourself as a person and as an exporter. Don't promise heaven and give people hell or earth, whatever it's going to be. So consistency is also very important, because to clients, it's consistency. I don't want good flowers today and the worst sort of flowers tomorrow because handling was not done right. So you have to be very reliable from the onset. Whatever you tell them, let it be so. Whatever you're giving, let it improve, but let it not go down or stagnation. You have to always keep on improving if you want to break the ceiling in exports. If you bring mediocre business in exports, you're going to be wiped out.
So what I'm hearing is, for a regular guy, this is tough business for them to get into. For them to have, even actually crack the code of starting the business, it's gonna be a little bit tougher for them. For a first timer, then is it better for them to actually find someone like you who is already in the business to hold their hands, for them to get to really understand the business before they can go it by themselves?
If I'm to be very honest, I also got someone, or rather several people, to hold my hand while getting into it. Exports is very intricate. I will always say that. It's not easy. It's complex. So if you find people, and I mean good, honest, transparent people, because there are others who want to ensure that no one else gets into the space, so they're going to mislead you. But I'll be very honest. There's so many exporters out here who are ready to pass even the baton to young people to venture into it. So I associated myself with exporters that are ready to help me to learn. And you've got to also be ready to learn and relearn, because it's a very volatile kind of space. So for me, yes, I submitted myself to the authority of already existing exporters to learn, because it's hard, especially when you're a first timer. Even getting the certificates themselves, you cannot assume you understand. When you just go to that portal, you see things and you're like, now which license is this? Which certificate is this? How am I supposed to fill in the documents? It's supposed to be in a certain kind of way. So I was taught and I was assisted. Let me also say that when I was getting the horticultural export license for flowers, I went to the horticultural directorate. It's at the airport. I went and told them I want to export flowers. I was assigned to someone who helped me know what are the documents I'm supposed to bring. So we also assume that government, bodies and agencies don't assist someone. They actually do. So let's not assume that they are not willing to help. They are very open, by the way, and they are so ready to help us to understand. So if you want to do coffee, visit the coffee directorate, even in your own region. Get to know what you require. Information is also online. So you have to submit yourself to knowing these things because it's very intricate, that I must admit.
Yeah, I'm imagining that way. We usually talk about the export business, and so for example, if we use the example of tea, I think 90% of the tea that is produced in Kenya is usually exported. So that means the amount that we actually consume in the country is very small. 60 years later, after we've gotten independence, why do you think that's still the case?
I remember back in school, we used to be told cash crops and food crops. So when you talk about tea, coffee, flowers, they are mainly grown to be consumed internationally, which is not wrong. It's very good because they are very key foreign exchange earners in the country. Tea by itself generates over 350 billion worth of exports annually. We are always improving. When you look at flowers, it's generating close to 108 billion. That was actually the statistic of 2024 annually. So these products, it's not that we are not consuming them locally. We are, but they are mainly grown for export purposes. So I agree, because you'll never find a shortage of tea in this country. Much as we are exporting, you'll never hear we have a shortage of tea leaves. So it is okay. But I think even as a country, we need to embrace these export products so that we also consume it. Let's not just assume it's just for export purposes. Let's also consume and thrive in them. Brian, buy flowers regularly and take them to your girlfriend and tell her, this is a sign of. But you see, even here, we don't buy flowers as much, yet it's a very key export product. So and I think we also need to market these products out there. Let people know, if you want the best flowers, you can only get them in Kenya. If you want the best tea, you can only get it in Kenya. If you want the best coffee, you can only get it from. So it's a story, but it's okay. I agree. These are cash crops. They were meant primarily and majorly for export. So let's thrive in it.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because one thing I've never understood so far, it's the business of flowers and how it works. Personally, I've never been convinced why I should buy flowers every single morning, because I know the next day they are gonna go bad. So I'm like, is it worth it for me to keep buying it every single day, fresh flowers? Why should a Kenyan, even bother buying flowers in the first place?
Let me tell you something. We have clients in particular that buy flowers not for retail, but for home use. They just want to be changing flowers in their house every day or after every 3 to 5 days. Flowers leave an impression in someone. Like us women, we are very emotional. When I receive flowers, I can tell you the exact first day that my husband bought me flowers, because there's an impression it leaves. There's someone who loves running, jogging, or doing the gym, every day. To someone else, it's just changing flowers in their house. It's very therapeutic. So it's more about the feeling it imposes in you. Someone else, like ladies, just doing a skincare routine can make you feel so good about yourself. For another person, just changing flowers and buying new flower vases makes it so it just makes them feel better about themselves. So it's about the impression it leaves. Yes, it's going to, rot in the next, 3-5 days, but what impression did it leave in you? And that's why you see in Europe there's so many flowers moving around, because they are so intentional on how they express their love, how they express even grief. You find in a burial, it's decorated so beautifully with flowers. You're giving someone a send-off that you also feel, I have done my part and I have done a great thing. So that is what flowers do. They're gonna rot in 5 days, but the impression it leaves for a lifetime. Ask women who receive flowers, and they're going to tell you the exact date, the exact time they received it, because of the impression it leaves.
And I think that's where our thinking is a little bit different between men and women. And for me, I'm like, do I really have to buy flowers for something I think is going to go bad in a few days? But I think from that perspective, it sort of makes sense. I think this is also something I experienced when I was living in Europe as well. I mean, you could see a lot of people just buying flowers, or like if you walk into a supermarket, you find fresh flowers everywhere. I think it's also more of a culture thing. I think in Kenya, we don't have that culture of, hey, maybe your house would look a little bit better if you bought flowers. Are we in that point of having that ability to change people's minds about actually embracing flowers? Because the way I see it, flower is more of a luxury product. So for like an average Kenyan, trying to convince them that flowers needs to be part of their life, that will be a very difficult job, I guess.
Back in the days, just as I spoke about the traditional or subsistence mode of farming, you'd rarely, in fact, you'd hardly spot even a rose flower somewhere. People had not embraced it. But when you look at the generation we are living in now, you can see the bouquets, how they are prepared when someone is gifted a car, and you see very beautiful red roses that have been properly packaged and everything, and people buy. So let me tell you, people are now embracing the luxurious way of living. So we are slowly getting there. And when you look at how flowers are being sold now, they are being sold even way more. If you look at Valentine's, do you know Valentine's, how flowers move? In fact, when you speak about exports in particular, if you're an exporter, there's no way you can book February flowers in February. You have to book them the previous year. Otherwise, if you try even doing it on January, you're not going to get those flowers. Mother's Day, Father's Day. People are nowadays embracing these public holidays and everything, and flowers are moving. So let me tell you, you have got to now come in and start embracing it. But I think even us as either the people within the flower industry, we are probably not selling the story enough. And it's time for us to do something we call branding. You know, branding is also part of the value chain of agriculture. And branding is also the perception. So we need to tell Kenyans what flowers means for this country and how flowers can impact different people. We now have to stop selling flowers and we begin selling a story. In Colombia, there is a fictional character known as Juan Valdez. You might have heard about him. He's a coffee character representing all the smallholder coffee farmers in Colombia. So it's a household name actually when it comes to coffee. And they sell their coffee at a very premium pricing just because of this fictional character that's called Juan Valdez and everything. So they're not just selling the bean, they're selling a story. And even us who are in the flower space, it's time we start selling a story. Because I think we're not shouting about it enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also, I think, one thing I also notice about, especially coffee, even we go to Ethiopia, you'll find them roasting coffee in the sideways. So to some extent, for them, it has become part of their culture, right? It's like tea. When you go into a Kenyan home, you're probably likely going to get tea, whether it's in the morning or at around 4 p.m. So it has become part of the culture. And that, I think, takes time for you to get to that point of saying, hey, look, this is part of our culture. I think something we mentioned a little bit earlier about the costs. So let's say someone wanted to get into the business of exporting. You can just give us like an overview in terms of costs. What should they look forward to? What kind of money are we talking about?
So when we talk about money, it depends on the scale upon which you want to begin the particular business. There is someone who wants to begin in the lowest form possible. You can even use within 50,000 Kenya shillings. There is someone who wants to set something big and they can begin with 1 million. Others begin with 5 million, others even 20 million. If you want to start even setting up a whole flower farm, they can do even 20, 30, 50 million. So it depends with one's financial capability, but I want to assure you that you can even begin with as low as 30,000, 50. When we were acquiring the flower export license, horticultural export license, the amount we paid to Agriculture and Food Authority was 20,000. Now that one, 20,000, you paid on the portal. And days later, once they verify that you are fit to do the business, you get the license. When you're starting a business here in Kenya, you can even start from as low as, I think, 5,000, 10,000 when you register on eCitizen. So you can start from the lowest form possible. Depends with someone's financial muscles. But I'd advise especially in flowers, you can begin as an aggregator. Setting up a flower farm is very expensive. So for us, even us, we admitted, and it's something we want to do, but we know we can't do it right now. So we began by aggregating. So that just meant registering a business and getting the export license. You get an office premises. Our office is located at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. Setting it up there was also very expensive, but that's what we wanted. You can even set it up here in Westlands and get an office and be paying 20,000 per month and still begin the business. So it depends with everyone, but you can start from as low as 10, 20,000.
I think that's the most realistic advice I've heard so far, because you can start by 50,000, then 1 year later or like a few months later you're making millions. But I think that realistic way of thinking, hey, this is going to be a journey, start from where you are and then you get to grow, I think that's the most realistic advice. So I'm thinking in terms of mistakes. There's someone who wants to start one. What are some of the common mistakes that you're seeing a lot of people are making when they want to enter this business?
So number one, I get so many questions from young people and they tell me, oh, I want to get into exports like you. How can I do exports of flowers? And I ask them, why do you want to venture into exports? And they tell me that exports has big money and quick money. Now, let me just say it today. That's not true. It's a fiction we've been made to believe. So the most important thing is, why do you want to venture into exports? Someone is looking at money. You are going to get into exports and be very disappointed because the money is not immediate. The big quick money that you're talking about, you get it in 3-5 years after you've established the business. So if you're looking for quick money, then you are in the wrong industry. 2, exports involves so many documentations, import-export certifications. You need to get them right from the onset. Someone is going to realize, I don't have an export license, and you've already brought the flowers to the airport. They're going to go bad because, trust me, they won't leave the country without all the certifications. So you need to be very clear on all the certification that you need. Don't assume simply because I have a horticultural export license for flowers, I cannot export avocado with it. Yes, I have a horticultural license, but I cannot. In fact, the licenses are very specific. When you do coffee, we particularly have a coffee buyer license. It even states you can only buy coffee from auctions. So I cannot do direct sales. So you get in, not understanding these intricacies. The coffee is there at the pot. You don't have the certification. Some of them, acquiring them is not a day activity. It's weeks or months. So you need to understand all the certificates you need. Register the business. Have it compliant when it comes to taxes. So others, you have the KRA certificate, yes, but do you have the tax compliance certificate? No. That in itself misses you. Number 3, unreliability. It's another mistake. You give story A today to a client. Tomorrow you've shifted the goalpost and you start telling them, now this is what will happen the other day. So you have to be very consistent with what you say. Clients don't like inconsistency, especially where big money is involved. If I'm to give you 10 million, please tell me why I should give you. But if you start giving me different stories, I doubt you. I go and work with someone who's more serious. Something else is consistency, volumes and everything. You need to have the right suppliers, by the way. Because you might have a client, tell them you'll give them, but you're not in good relations with suppliers, they don't supply you. Logistics is also another aspect. So you have to master every aspect of the value chain of exports. From the onset, don't start mastering when the client has come. You start preparing way before, so that even when a client comes, it's plug and play. You already understand. Don't try to understand on the day that you're supposed to ship flowers. Start preparing yourself before.
Yeah, the earlier you start, the better. And I think just to reiterate the point we said, having someone who can hold your hand in this business, I'm getting it's a very, very critical part for you to succeed.
And you have to learn how to ask questions. Some of us are silent with our problems. You are not asking what certifications you need. You are not confirming if you have all of them in place. I remember when we began exporting to the United States, it was new for us. You have to understand the certifications required in Middle East and US are very different, and each client will ask you for very different things. So don't assume simply because you know about Middle East, now it's automatic with another region. Things are different, clients are different. What did I do? I contacted someone from KEFIS, Kenya Plant Health Inspectorate Service, and I asked her, what documents do I require in order to export flowers to United States? I got like 3-4 more additional certifications that I should have. So I'd have gone and said, I export to Middle East, I mean, even US I can, but you find that the game there is different. So you must be willing to ask questions and be bold about it. In fact, in Swahili we say, kuuliza si ujinga. So ask, confirm, clarify, ensure you are as accurate as possible from the onset.
Yeah, and I'm guessing when you're doing business in a very high stakes, a business like this one, which involves like a lot of money, any small mistakes can just mean disaster. So the act of double checking and making sure you have all the right documents is a very important part. We mentioned earlier about some of the vulnerabilities that can happen. So, for example, we talked about the war that's happening in the Middle East, in Iran, US, and Israel. First of all, did it affect you personally when the war started? And yeah, what effect has it have in the export business in Kenya?
It exported us in particular as a company because it hit at a time when flower sales is at its peak. You know, it began in late February, so it's just post Valentine's. Then when we get into March, we have, is it the Women's Day or Mother's Day? They fall around that same. So it's usually a peak season for flower exports. Then a crisis hits. So the time you believe that you're gonna make the most profits is actually the time that you actually made the list. So we were affected, but this is what I'd tell people who want to venture into exports. You have to know that your business is vulnerable to global shocks because this is a global business. So global shocks are inevitable. We had the Ukraine-Russia war, exporters were affected. We had the Gaza conflict, exporters were affected. Talk about US-Iran war. I don't export flowers to Iran, but it goes through Middle East. So when the airspace closures happened, that means I cannot export. So even the ones that were going to Europe but have to go through Middle East, they also did not go. So exporters really suffered. I think even the ones who suffered the most are the ones who primarily deal with the Middle East region. They were losing almost 75% of their profits and their margins within that time. But global shocks are good because now they teach you how to seek alternatives because global shocks are inevitable when it comes to exports. So you have to brace yourself. You have to spread your stakes. Don't just rely on one particular market, diversify. Don't just rely on one particular route that everything has to go through airline A. What if that airline decides to close? You have to spread your risks.
So is this where the fact of insurance comes in? Do you guys take insurance before you do your exports?
Oh, yes, we do. You have to, because the stakes are very high. You can imagine if you were having coffee that was on transit and had to go through the Strait of Hormuz, and then now everything stops, and you didn't have an insurance. Everything spoils. We are talking of sales worth millions. What do you do? In fact, when you work with most seaports and sea lines, insurance is compulsory. Even in the air mode of transport for these things, it is compulsory. So I normally advise people, have those insurance. They will help you. Of course, you're not anticipating for the worst, but a wise business person is someone who also anticipates the worst case scenarios. So insurance, it's very important.
Wow. So there's so many variables that are involved in the export businesses. One thing I saw, I think a few weeks ago, is that the Kenyan government managed to get, is it a duty-free export to China? So what does that exactly mean for someone who is in the export business? How is that going to help them?
I must say that was something that came at a very good critical time. That suggestion came through the Cabinet Secretary of Agriculture, and it came while we were still in the midst of the US-Iran war. So what happened is that we got an alternative. Now Middle East has been affected. Here is China. We have opened the way for you. We have been exporting to China, by the way. It's not new. It's something we've been doing. But of course, the products were attracting certain percentages of tariffs. Like for flowers, it's around 4%. So when the duty-free idea came by, it means that now you can attract better margins if you're already exporting to China. It also means if you are a new exporter, you need to now start looking at the target market in China, get to know what they want, what they get from Kenya, and what you can provide unto them. So it's also a very good market for new exporters who now want to venture. So you have to start knowing, what does China love? What do they want? How do they want it? Then start focusing on that. When you look at exporting to China, I think of all the countries we deal with, becoming an exporter to China is very dense, because the certifications they want from you are crazy, and there are so many, and they do a very thorough due diligence. So you have to be very straight if you want to deal with China. But now if you get good clients, it's a very good market for you. But let me also say, the cabinet secretary insisted, much as we have the duty-free access, let's value add. Let's shift from exporting raw and now start doing value addition, so that we are also able to fetch premium prices. So it's okay, the market is there, but let's start now getting new ways of exporting. It's not just exporting the raw. Let's value add. Let's see what China wants. How do they want tea to be packaged? If you can do it, if you can figure it out, then you've mastered it.
I mean, that's a big business for one to get into. I think there's is it 1.4 billion people in China? So that's a lot of people that will need the product. So I'm guessing normally there was, I think, 20% of import duty that someone needed to pay before they get into China. So that has gone to zero, right?
For almost 98% of the products. But if you are in agriculture, it's totally zero. Like, actually, to be honest, for flowers, tea, coffee, it's now zero.
So that means that amount you are supposed to pay in taxes when you're exporting to China, that money remains in your pockets.
Could I say it remains? It can also not remain, because you remember, once the US-Iran war happened, even the fuel prices were affected. So some of this money will now maybe spill over to logistics. So it's a lot. But yes, you can have the money, though not all of it, but at least now you have something as compared to when the tariff was there.
You mentioned about the cabinet secretary insisting about value adding. I think we mentioned this. Most of our products goes out of the country raw. So I'm thinking, what can we do? And you can share it from your perspective. What can we do to improve these situations? Because is it that the existing framework or the existing exporters want the system to remain that way for them to continue benefiting? Is it that we don't have enough consumer base to do that? We don't have enough purchasing power for us to be able to do that? So what's going on, and how can we improve that situation?
When we talk about value addition, we are talking about processing, we're talking about packaging. We are also talking about branding. Branding is also value addition. So you can sell it raw, but how you sell the story makes your raw commodity attract premium pricing. But also, let's be very honest, the reason why most farmers in Kenya are not getting good profit or margins is because we are not value adding. So a product like coffee might leave Kenya at $3 per kilogram, and then the person who's going to sell it at retail will sell it at $30. So this 27 goes to other countries, goes to other companies. So a country that is going to excel in agriculture is a country that's going to try and control most of the value chain. When you talk about flowers, we are so big on volumes because we produce lots of flowers, but in auction systems, they are controlled by other countries. Logistics becomes expensive. So we have to start mastering these things as a country to ensure that by the time a product is leaving Kenya, it's already attracting at least a certain amount of money so that many people can earn. But I'd also say infrastructure cost is expensive, because even me right now, I want to value add, but when I look at the amount of money I'll need to get the machines, to set up the structures, the cost of energy right now, getting financing. Let's be realistic. I am a young person. when I want to acquire a loan, they'll tell me to portray assets. What assets do I have as a young person? I lack financing. So for others, it's a financing issue. Others, infrastructure issue. Energy cost is high. So there are so many things that are in play. But I am grateful because the current CS of agriculture is really advocating towards value addition, and he's really coming up with policies that are going to favor the Kenyan farmer so that they are protected and they fetch premium prices. Look at the tea levy. It was introduced. It's not the farmer that's going to pay the levy, it's us exporters. And you see, he also said that if we import tea from other countries, it's going to attract 100% duty. Who will want to bring tea in Kenya now? Nobody. That will mean we'll have to consume our own tea and export it. So value addition, purple tea has been introduced. It's also fetching premium. So it calls for innovation. Even for us, we've got to innovate and get out of the subsistence form of thinking about farming.
All I'm hearing is that maybe our environment is not conducive enough for the entrepreneur who wants to set up their business here. So you're talking from whether it's the cost of energy or like what is the infrastructure that you're looking at. So that enabling environment still needs a lot of work to be done for us to be able to attract more investors into the country as well.
And actually, work is already being done. We are not yet there, but we have already begun the journey. Let's also not rule out the fact that the government is also trying so hard, even exporters, we are trying so hard to come up with innovative ways as to how we are going to make this, the export industry very conducive. So we are not yet there, but we are heading there. But let me add something. I've actually thought up, something crossed my mind just now. The branding aspect of value addition. At times we really rely on the government to formulate policies for us, but some of this work has to be done by us. You see, when you watch soap operas, I know you watch them at some point, you'd see them acting in haciendas, in coffee estates. Like the film, when you watch a movie produced in France, you're going to see some vineyard somewhere. When you watch from Colombia and Mexico, you're going to see haciendas. When you watch from US, Texas, you're going to see ranches. What do people see when they see Kenyan film? I'm not seeing Kenyan films with flower farms, with thriving coffee estates, with thriving tea estates. So film, so that once someone thinks about Kenya, they're going to see flowers and know, so you can get flowers from Kenya. It's going to attract a premium price. Last week I watched a movie and one of the actors was Idris Elba and his wife was in Kenya now, according to the movie, in a safari. So I am assuming it was maybe Masai Mara. So an American who watched that movie will know that once you come to Kenya, you are gonna, tourism is. So can people know that once you come to Kenya, you can get very premium flowers, very premium coffee, very premium tea. So I think it's also a change of mindset. We don't only rely on the policies being formulated. They might take ages, but what can we do by ourselves?
Yeah, I think that urgency also has to come from us as citizens, as entrepreneurs who are seeing this opportunity that is not being capitalized. And that takes a little bit of courage. It's interesting, you mentioned yourself, you're a Gen Z as well, and you're involved in the business. So I'm wondering, from an entrepreneurship perspective, what has this journey of entrepreneur has taught you? What has it exposed yourself to in this journey of starting a business and actually making it work?
One thing I've learned in particular is not to be someone who shouts so much about problems and to be someone who offers solutions. In exports, you can be told that, the truck that was carrying flowers, it has mguu, gurudumu imeharibika, and you can't start crying. You have to devise solutions. Okay, this has happened. What do I do next? Maybe a flight has been cancelled or has delayed. How do you handle such things? So as an entrepreneur, I have learned how to provide solutions, and not just solutions. You can also provide a solution, but it's delayed. It has come at a wrong time. So you have to be very quick on how you think, on how you provide solutions, because you are going to encounter problems. But yes, the problem has come. What next? So for us entrepreneurs, at times we face challenges, then we tend to give up or tend to draw back. But it's very important that once the problem comes, you face it head on and you face it with soberness. entrepreneurship needs you to be in the sober-most way possible. How you make decisions, don't make based on emotions. A client has declined your offer and you are like, hata we I didn't. Yes. So, and especially young people, Gen Zs, I think we tend to react so fast. We tend to give up so fast. But you need to have the muscles to hold on and like, yeah, it didn't work. I'm going to wait. And let's not be over ambitious. Let's be ambitious, but not over ambitious. Yeah, there's a very thin line between indiscipline and overexcitement. You get overexcited that you're going to receive 10 million, you get the money, you buy a car instead of delivering what is expected of you. So you need to be very accurate from the onset and very sober in everything you're doing and every decision you make.
And once you get the money, actually the best thing is to reinvest in the business, reinvesting in the business, right? What do you need? Do you need a new machine? Do you need maybe a new software to help you arrange your products better? So I think once you have that mindset as well, it helps a lot. So I'm thinking, like, from your perspective and the kind of vision you're looking at in the export business, let's run forward like 20 years from now. Paint for us a picture that you're seeing in the export business. Are there more people involved in it? Are we making more money from it? Like, what kind of vision are you painting 20 years from now?
So one, as a young person, I want to see more young people venture into exports. Most people fear exports because they feel it's capital intensive. It's a field for the big boys, you know. But I'm not a big boy, and I am in it. So I'm imagining a scenario where more young people venture into exports, agricultural exports in particular. Number two, I'm envisioning a time when we are now shifting from subsistence farming into precision farming. You see, right now, I'm dressed in a suit. Every time, you're going to find me in a suit. And someone asks me and I tell them, I'm proudly in agriculture. Agriculture is not about jembes, only just about jembes, dressing, I don't know what sort of way. You've got to also look the part. So I'd love to see farmers that dress up in suits and they're like, you know what? I'm actually a farmer. And how are you a farmer? Yes, you can be. And present yourself well. Also, precision farming, I've been insisting on that so much. Pivot irrigation systems, climate smart technologies. And you know, young people are very good when it comes to innovation and tech-driven solutions. So if you're a young person, you might not necessarily be a farmer, but you might be developing systems, websites, technologies that are able to help us, you know, go into another level of farming. So in agriculture. So 20 years from now, I see a very transformative kind of country, value addition as well. We are getting there. And I can assure you by the time we are exporting 20 years from now, we'll be exporting value added and very premium products. You know, it's also not just a must you export flowers in the raw form, the rose. You can actually make essential oils from flowers. So don't just look at a flower and just think about the physical flower that you give. Think about what can I extract from a flower that can make product ABC.
Absolutely. I think that's a really, really great vision that one should look forward to. And I think, as you said, more people should give export business an option for themselves. And I think when you have people like you in it, then it makes them wonder, okay, this is something that I can get myself involved in as well.
And I also think it's time for those people who are already in exports over the years to now pass the baton to the younger generation. And I also mean putting young people in decision-making spaces. I attended a certain event organized by KEPROBA, Kenya Export Promotion and Branding Agency. It was for women in exports. I was the youngest woman exporter. And I was happy because they're now saying, hey, if you're an exporter and you're a woman, come. And you say such events are able to help us to now interact with those that are already in it, and us, we now adapt and continue. So exporters, this is one thing I can say. Let's come out here, because we are not known. In fact, we don't know so many exporters, but come out, recruit young people, teach them, and embrace the solutions they'll give you. Bring them into decision-making platforms. Make them understand what they need so that even 20 years from now, exports from Kenya does not collapse but continues. I told you tea is generating over 320 billion annually for this country. Imagine a scenario where tea export stops. It's a disaster. So the baton has to be passed.
Yeah, and actually that's the best way to sort of exchange knowledge and ideas and some of the systems that have been running the export business for so long to young people. I think apprenticeship is one of the most underrated ways that we can use to transfer skills from one generation to another. So that's very, very interesting. But I like the way you say that, agriculture doesn't have to be like you are in a djembe, you are in a farm just digging. It can be someone like you who is in the export business. It can be someone who is a lawyer but it's helping farmers. So there's so many ways that you can get yourself involved in the agricultural world other than having a djembe. And more people should look for that as well. So as we finish, I usually have something I call rapid fire questions. So what I've done, I've prepared 10 questions for you. So the idea is very simple. I'll draw this question to you and you'll give me quick and short answers to them. So are you ready?
Yeah.
The first question is, when you were young, what did you want to be when you grow up?
UN Secretary General.
Second is, what is one Kenyan product you believe that is still massively underrated?
I'd say herbs. Yeah, rosemary, moringa, etc. They're now venturing into herbal teas, wellness, essential oil. So it's still underrated.
All right. Third question, what is the biggest misconception people have about export business?
It involves quick and big money.
Fourth, what is the most surprising thing you've learned about the global trade?
That global shocks are also part of the trade. And at times they are going to favor you.
All right. Next question. If you could remove one barrier in the Kenyan export sector, what will it be?
Excessive certifications.
Sixth question. What is your favorite book?
It's the Bible. But I also read Woman Evolve, The Blue Ocean Strategy, Atomic Habits. I have quite a collection of books, but the Bible stands out as the best for me.
All right. Seventh question. One export market every Kenyan entrepreneur should pay attention to right now.
Currently, People's Republic of China.
Eighth question. What is one uncomfortable truth about doing business internationally?
The product is just half the business. There's packaging, there's logistics, there's so many things in play. So just mastering the product is just half of it.
All right. Ninth question. What is the one quote that you live by?
It's a quote by Maya Angelou, the late. Do the best you can till you know better. And when you know better, do better.
Okay. I think that's inspiring. All right. Last question. If you could advise your 18-year-old self, what would you advise her?
18-year-old self, never give up. Continue chasing the dream. If you can dream it, you can definitely achieve it.
Yeah, and I'm guessing when we are at that age, we necessarily are not certain, like we don't know what's going to happen in the future. But what I like about these questions, it helps you reflect back to your younger self. And I think that gives you a lot of context and some of the things you could do better. So thank you very much for making time for the podcast. I really, really enjoyed it. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom and the practicalness of actually getting involved in the export business. So I think a lot of people will find this conversation insightful. If people want to follow you and just get in touch, how can they do that?
So my personal pages, you can follow me on Instagram, Facebook as Ellen Muthama. On LinkedIn as well, I'm Ellen Muthama. For Nouvelle Blooms Ltd on Instagram. We also have a website that's running, so you can reach us from any platform. And I know it will also have a contact. So if you want to reach me, ask any questions. I'm also very willing to help. Even on my DMs, please come and ask me, how do you want to get into exports? I'd be very, very glad to assist where I can.
All right. Thank you very much. So I hope this conversation was very insightful for you, all about export business. And of course, if you have more questions, leave in the comments, or you can get directly in touch with her as well. We are on the road to 20K right now. I think we are at 14K. So that is the next journey. So if you haven't subscribed, especially on YouTube, make sure you do that. Till the next podcast, remember to be organic. Cheers.